Everything shifted while I was lying in that hospital bed. My son looked me in the eye and told me the house wasn't mine anymore. Just like that. He said I had no place there. That I needed to find somewhere else to live. I froze where I stood. The scar from surgery still ached deep inside me. But that wasn't the pain that cut me down. It was hearing those words from the very son I had poured my entire life into. I'd only been gone 3 weeks, recovering from complications after hip surgery. 3 weeks in a sterile room, longing for the comfort of home, for the family I had raised. And now, standing at the door of the place Mark and I had built over 3 decades, I was told I no longer belonged. That moment wasn't just about a house. It was about betrayal. A betrayal so sharp I couldn't fully grasp it yet. And if you've ever wondered what happens when a mother gets pushed to her breaking point, keep reading. And tell me in the comments below which city you're reading this from. My hospital discharge papers crinkled in my pocket as the taxi pulled into the driveway of my old Colonial. 21 days had felt like forever. Between fever and infection, I'd fought for every step toward recovery while life outside rolled on without me. I was tired, yes, but relieved. Relieved to finally be coming back. Back home. The 2-story house Mark and I had poured ourselves into stood proud in the evening light. Roses I'd planted decades earlier still clung to the walkway, though they were desperate for pruning after my absence. "Want me to help with your bags, ma'am?" the driver asked, eyeing my cane. "Just to the front, thank you," I rasped, my voice still raw from weeks of hospital air. My son should be waiting. The door creaked open before we reached it. And there he was, David. My only boy. But the face I saw wasn't the one I remembered. No warmth. No welcome. Just something cold, distant. Hard. Behind him I noticed movement, his wife Nicole. And further back I could swear I saw her parents. "David," I called softly. "What's going on?" He didn't budge. "You shouldn't have come today. We expected you tomorrow." The taxi driver set down my little suitcase and left, clearly sensing the tension in the air. "There's no easy way to say this," David continued, his tone like dry ice. "While you were in the hospital, things changed. This house isn't yours anymore." A chill ran through me. Nothing to do with my fragile body. "What are you talking about?" I demanded. "Mark and I arranged everything. This is my home." Nicole stepped forward then, her blonde hair gleaming, a fake sweetness in her tone. And I noticed, she was wearing my emerald earrings. The ones Mark gave me for our 25th anniversary. "Linda," she said, her voice syrupy, "we already packed up your things. They're in boxes in the garage. We can send them wherever you end up." Behind them, Nicole's parents, James and Barbara, stepped into view. I'd only seen them a handful of times, but I'd never forgotten Barbara's sharp, judging stare or James's polished arrogance. And now they were standing in my living room as if it had always been theirs. "I'm sorry it came to this," James said, without a shred of apology in his voice. But David explained it clearly. "The house has already been transferred." "Transferred?" My voice cracked. "That's impossible. I didn't sign anything." David's jaw tightened. "You gave me power of attorney before surgery. Remember? For medical decisions. It included financial authority too." His words struck me like a punch. I remembered the stack of papers. He'd shoved them at me while I was scared and distracted, waiting for anesthesia. I hadn't read beyond the first page. I had trusted him, my son. "You tricked me," I whispered. "We're doing what's best for everyone," Nicole cut in. "This house is far too much for you to manage alone. David has been handling it for years. It's better this way." "Don't come back here again," David said firmly. "We'll send the rest of your things." I just stared at him. My boy, the one I'd rocked to sleep, scraped knees for, worked double shifts to put through college. Now he was a stranger, cold and unrecognizable. "This is illegal," I said softly. "It's done," he shot back. "Don't make this harder than it is." Something shifted inside me then. Not tears, not begging. A hard, icy clarity. The kind I hadn't felt since my years working in bank compliance. "Enjoy it," I said flatly. "Enjoy all of it." The flicker of confusion in their eyes at my calmness was the only victory I allowed myself. I turned, leaning on my cane, and walked away. Thankfully, I'd asked the taxi to wait. I slid into the back seat, pulled out my phone and typed a single message. Plan B. The hotel room in downtown Phoenix was small and anonymous, but it was mine for now. My hands trembled as I sat on the bed, staring at the phone until it buzzed. Stay safe. I'm on my way. Gloria Adams. My dearest friend of 40 years. A lawyer. A fighter. And the only person I trusted enough to call. She arrived not long after, sharp as ever in her tailored suit, silver hair pulled back neat. But her eyes blazed with fury. She hugged me gently, mindful of my recovering hip. Are you all right? She asked. Physically? Barely. Emotionally? Worse, I said. Then let's fix it, she said, setting her briefcase on the desk. I wanted to believe her. But when she showed me the papers, my world tilted again. Fraudulent transfers. Unauthorized withdrawals. Over $200,000 gone. Taken while I was lying unconscious in a hospital bed. And it didn't end there. Gloria had dug deeper into Nicole's family. Real estate scams. Mortgage fraud. Complaints buried before they reached investigators. And there was David, my son, standing right beside them. I thought of the boy who once cried over losing 50 cents in a board game. Who once returned a lost wallet without hesitation. That boy was gone. Now the question wasn't what had been done to me. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I looked Gloria straight in the eyes and said, everything. I'm going to do everything I can to take back what's mine, and make them face the consequences. They spoke in code, but I understood every word. They pointed out houses on my block, weighing which neighbors could be tricked, which ones were ripe for the taking. And worst of all, they spoke of my house as their headquarters once they fully controlled it. Then one line froze my blood, still hesitant but yielding. Mother. Unlikely to recover fully from scheduled surgery. Accelerated timeline. Scheduled surgery? I whispered. My hip replacement wasn't an emergency. It had been scheduled months ahead. Linda. Gloria's voice softened, heavy with warning, like she was bracing me for a blow. They were waiting for this, I said, the truth slamming into me. They knew I'd be weak after the operation. They counted on it. We can't be sure David understood the entire scope, Gloria began. Enough, I snapped, raising my hand. No more excuses. He knew. He knew they wanted my house and my money. He knew they were plotting while I was helpless. That certainty cut deeper than any surgeon's blade. My son hadn't just betrayed me. He'd done it with calculation and ice-cold precision. I rose, ignoring the protest from my healing hip, and stepped toward the window. The Phoenix skyline glowed under the setting sun, utterly indifferent to the disaster unraveling in my life. What do you want to do? Gloria asked softly. My answer came instantly. I want justice. Not only for me, but for everyone they've already conned or planned to. And I want my house back. Gloria nodded. Then we move carefully. They think they've already won. That gives us the edge. Good, I said. A plan was already sharpening in my mind. They had no idea what was coming. Going over the property records with Gloria, a terrifying pattern emerged. The Stolen's were systematically buying up homes in my neighborhood. Their grand plan was a rezoning scheme worth millions. And the knife twisted deeper when I saw proof David wasn't just caught in the current. He had known for months. He may have even timed their takeover to line up perfectly with my surgery. Now it wasn't only about reclaiming my home. My entire community, my neighbors, many elderly and vulnerable, was at risk. I knew fraud when I saw it, and I was exactly the kind of person who could stop it. Linda, are you certain about this? Gloria asked as she stood in the hotel bathroom doorway, watching me apply makeup in the mirror. Your hip is still healing. I steadied my hand as I brushed on lipstick. I spent 21 days in that hospital bed feeling powerless. I'm done with helplessness. A week had passed since I'd been thrown out. In that time, Gloria and I had pieced together how the Stolen's operated. In Dallas, they'd left behind a trail of financial wreckage. Seniors stripped of everything through predatory loans and forged papers. Now they were replicating the same game in Phoenix, using my house as their command center. The timing has to be exact, I reminded her, adjusting my gray pantsuit and modest jewelry in the mirror. I needed to look like what I truly was. A seasoned banking professional, not some broken woman cast aside. The agents are in place, Gloria confirmed. They'll move only when we give the signal. We had taken everything to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. They had been chasing the Stolen's for months, but what they lacked was inside access. That's where I came in. We struck a deal. They'd hold off on immediate arrests until we could collect airtight evidence, and in return I'd get first claim on recovering what was mine. We need undeniable proof they used my identity. I repeated our mission aloud. Bank access, forged signatures, explicit acknowledgement of the plan. Without that, they'll argue I handed it over willingly. Gloria nodded, glancing at her watch. Nicole's at her salon appointment. She'll be gone at least 2 hours. James and Barbara are across town at a property showing. And David won't be back from work until 5. Perfect, I said. His predictability, once something I found endearing, was now my weapon. I drew in a long breath. Let's do this. The taxi left me 2 blocks away. I walked slowly, leaning on my cane more as theater than necessity. The neighborhood looked unchanged, neat lawns, tidy porches, the big oak where David once built his treehouse. But to me, everything felt poisoned. As I neared the house, I spotted differences. My roses were gone, replaced with generic shrubs. The porch furniture Mark and I had lovingly restored was missing. They were already erasing us. I didn't head to the front door. Instead, I slipped to the side toward the kitchen entrance, our family's old secret. Back when David was a teenager, he used that door to sneak in after curfew, thinking I didn't know. The lock still yielded easily. Inside, I froze at the sound of unfamiliar voices drifting from my study. The closing with the Millers is Friday, a man said, James Stolenʼ. Once that's done, we'll control 40% of the block. And the Henderson deal? Another voice asked. That's finished. We used Mrs. Hayes's bank credentials to secure financing. Clean. My knuckles whitened on my cane. They were using my name, my spotless reputation to drive their fraud. Exactly the proof we needed. I flicked on the recorder on my phone, then pushed the study door open. The scene froze. James sat behind Mark's antique desk. Another man stood by the window. Both stared at me like they'd seen a ghost. Hello, James, I said evenly. Discussing business in my study? Linda, he blurted, leaping to his feet. What a surprise. How did you get in? Through the door, I replied. The same door to the house that is still legally mine. The younger man looked uneasy. Maybe I should step out. No need, I cut in. I just came to pick up some papers. James's face tightened. This property is no longer yours. David made that clear. Oh, he was clear, all right, I said, moving toward the file cabinet. Just as clear as you using my banking credentials to finance your scams. The blood drained from his face. I don't know what you're talking about. I yanked open the drawer and pulled out a folder. The Henderson deal. You used my data. I just heard you bragging about it. The nervous partner began edging toward the door. Mr. Stolenʼ, maybe? Linda's confused, James snapped. The hospital stay must have affected her mind, isn't that right? I met his eyes coldly. My mind has never been clearer. Clear enough to see exactly what you, Barbara, and Nicole are scheming. Clear enough to wonder if my son realizes the legal weight of the fraud he's helping you commit. James's mask slipped, revealing sharp menace. You have no proof. And even if you did, who would believe you over your own son? Leave now before I call the police and charge you with trespassing. I tilted my head as though considering. You're right about one thing, proof is essential. I lifted my phone, the recording app glowing on the screen. That's why I already captured it. His eyes flared with fury. Give me that phone. Not a chance. I backed slowly toward the door, heart hammering but face steady. I've got what I came for, I told James evenly. Enjoy the house while it lasts. I turned to leave, but he lunged, his hand clamping down on my arm with crushing force. Pain shot through my healing hip and nearly buckled me. You're not leaving with that recording, he snarled, his other hand grabbing for my phone. Let go. I shouted, raising my voice on purpose so every corner of the house could hear. Give me the phone first, he growled, twisting harder. Before I could fight him off, the front door slammed open. FBI. Hands where we can see them. Agents Rips and Callahan stormed inside, weapons drawn. James froze, then slowly lifted his hands, releasing me. My panic button app had worked exactly as planned. Linda Thompson, Agent Rip said, approaching as her partner cuffed James. Are you hurt? I'll be fine, I said, steadying myself against the doorframe. And I think I've got something you'll want to hear. Taking a gamble, I had walked back into my house while Nicole was at her salon. That gamble forced James into revealing his fraud out loud, and gave the FBI the proof they needed. He tried to get physical, but the recording was secure. Watching him being let out in cuffs, I realized this was just the opening act. The real storm would hit when David realized it was me behind the Stolen''s downfall. The FBI office felt like the inside of a filing cabinet. Cold beige walls, stiff furniture, the faint smell of burnt coffee. I sat in a windowless interview room, hip throbbing despite the strong painkiller they'd given me. Mrs. Thompson, Agent Callahan said, closing his notebook, your recording is a gold mine. Paired with the financial records you and Ms. Evans provided, we now have enough for search warrants on all Stolenʼ properties and accounts. And my house? My accounts? I asked. A judge already issued an emergency freeze order, he assured me. Nothing can be sold or transferred until ownership is resolved. Relief washed over me, but only partly. James and Barbara were in custody, but David and Nicole didn't yet know what was unfolding. What's next? I asked. We're executing warrants tonight, Rips explained. Nicole Stolenʼ will be taken in for questioning. As for your son, Callahan's voice softened, we'll need to determine how deep he's involved. The door opened and Gloria entered, holding a fresh stack of papers. Her face was sharp, satisfied. The first orders are through. They're hitting the Stolenʼ offices in Dallas right now. Mrs. Thompson, Callahan said carefully, you don't have to be present when we raid your house. I'll be there, I cut in. That's my home. I want to see it through. 3 hours later, I sat in an unmarked car across from the house I'd built a life in. The sun was sinking, shadows stretching across the yard where David used to play. Nicole's car sat in the drive, blissfully unaware that her father was already in a federal lockup. In position, Rips murmured, listening to her earpiece. Nicole Thompson confirmed inside. And her daughters with her. Arrived earlier than expected. My stomach clenched. David wasn't supposed to be there. I'd arranged for him to be approached quietly at work. Instead, he was about to get swept up in the raid beside his wife. Are you sure you want to witness this? Gloria asked, resting her hand gently over mine. Before I could answer, headlights filled the street. A convoy of cars pulled up, 3 sedans, a tactical van. Agents poured out, moving in practice formation. Dark jackets marked with bold yellow FBI. Federal agents. We have a warrant. The words carried down the quiet street. The door opened. From my angle, I saw Nicole appear, confusion flashing into horror. David stepped up beside her, his stance protective but his eyes uncertain. It's time, Rip said, opening her door. Stay behind us. As we crossed the street, neighbors trickled out, whispering, gawking. Some curious, some delighted at the drama. Nicole was the first to spot me, trailing behind the agents. Her mask cracked, voice shrill. You did this. David's eyes locked on mine. His face shifted from shock to realization to dread. Mom, he stammered. What's going on? Agent Callahan spoke formally. Your mother has provided evidence of large-scale financial fraud conducted by the Stolenʼ family. We have a warrant to search the premises and seize all records. Fraud? David repeated, looking baffled. What fraud? That's ridiculous. Is it? I said, stepping forward, cane tapping. This morning James was sitting in my study, bragging about using my banking credentials to fund his schemes. Nicole's face went pale. You were in the house? How? The side door, I replied. The same one your husband used as a teenager, sneaking in after curfew. Funny you never learned the house the way we did. Just like you never bothered to learn that the property belongs to a trust. A trust requiring both trustee signatures. And Gloria, I gestured beside me, never signed a thing. David looked back and forth between us, desperation setting in. Mom, you don't understand. We were trying to help. By stealing my house? By draining my accounts? By using my reputation to run fraud for your in-laws? My voice was steady, sharp. That's not helping, David. That's theft. Mrs. Thompson, Rips interjected. We need Nicole to come with us for questioning. Nicole snapped back into control, cold and precise. I'm not saying a word without my lawyer. That's your right, Callahan said. Then he turned to David. Mr. Thompson, you'll also need to answer questions. David's voice cracked. Mom, what did you do? What did I do? I shot back. I protected myself. And my neighbors. From people who think they can take anything they want. I taught you better than this. Your father did too. Agents led Nicole toward the van. She twisted back, spitting venom. You think you've won? Wait until my father's lawyers tear this apart. Your father's already in custody, I said calmly. Your mother too. The FBI is raiding your Dallas office as we speak. It's finished, Nicole. Her composure shattered. They pushed her into the car. David stood frozen on the porch, eyes hollow as agents swarmed through the house, bagging evidence. Mom, he whispered. I didn't know everything. You've got to believe me. I searched his face for truth. Maybe you didn't know at all, I admitted. But you knew enough. And still you chose them over me. I turned, walking back toward the car with Gloria. Behind me his voice broke. Where am I supposed to go now? I didn't look back. The same question had echoed in my head when he threw me out. The symmetry was brutal. But instead of satisfaction, I only felt the heavy sadness of loss. Some wounds run too deep for forgiveness. 3 days later, our hotel desk was buried in papers and evidence binders. Gloria slid a container of soup toward me. You need to eat, she said. I'm not hungry. You haven't been hungry in days. Your body's still healing. You need strength. I sighed, knowing she was right. Reluctantly, I lifted the spoon. The warmth steadied me. Better, Gloria said. Now, tomorrow's meeting. Tomorrow would be the first time I'd faced David since the raid. He'd asked for it through his lawyer, a young public defender named Marcus Reed. Marcus says David didn't understand the scope of what the Stolen's were doing, Gloria explained carefully. He claims Nicole kept him in the dark. That the power of attorney trick gave him access to your funds, but not full knowledge. A bitter laugh slipped from me. He was in the dark about her too, then? I'm not defending him, Gloria said gently. Just telling you what was said. I set the spoon down, appetite gone. What else? David's offered full cooperation. He's willing to testify against Nicole and her parents in exchange for leniency. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. So now he's betraying them. The idea shouldn't have surprised me. And yet, it did. The David I had raised was always fiercely loyal. Survival instinct, Gloria said quietly. The evidence against the Stolen's is overwhelming. He's just making the most convenient legal choice. And what does he want from me? I asked, though deep down I already knew. Officially? Nothing, she answered. The meeting is supposed to be about him telling you his side of things. But unofficially, I think he's hoping you'll beg the prosecutors for leniency. A mother's plea carries weight. I closed my eyes, feeling exhausted down to my bones. The thought of seeing David, of hearing his justifications, made my chest ache. You don't have to meet him, Gloria reminded gently. You don't owe him a thing anymore. I know, I said. But I need answers. I need to understand how my son became the kind of man who could do this. The interview room was stark. Metal table, hard chairs, a mirror hiding whoever was watching from the other side. Gloria sat beside me, my hands clasped tight to keep their trembling from showing. When the door opened, I barely recognized the man who stepped inside. David, who once lived in pressed suits and polished shoes, now looked unkempt. His khakis were wrinkled, his shirt plain, his jaw shadowed by days without shaving. Mom, he said quietly, taking the chair across from me. His lawyer, Marcus Reed, a serious young man with wire-rimmed glasses, sat next to him. David, I greeted, keeping my voice steady. Silence stretched between us, sharp and heavy. Neither of us seemed to know how to begin. Mrs. Thompson, Marcus finally spoke. My client asked for this meeting to clear up certain points he feels have been misunderstood. I'm listening, I said, eyes fixed on David, not his lawyer. David cleared his throat. First, I never wanted things to spiral this far. When Nicole and I talked about her parents moving here, it was only supposed to be temporary. Just until they found a place of their own. And the power of attorney? I cut in. The one you tricked me into signing before surgery? His eyes dropped, shame flooding his face. That was Nicole's idea. She said it was just a precaution in case you needed medical decisions while recovering. Yet you used it to strip my accounts and transfer my house, I accused. He hesitated, glancing at his lawyer. Marcus gave him a small nod. That was Nicole and James, David said quickly. They told me they were moving funds into safer investments for your retirement. I didn't know they were stealing. I studied his face, searching for truth. What I saw was desperation. Fear. But was it remorse, or only regret at being caught? And the house? I pressed. You told me to my face I couldn't come back. You stood at the door of the home your father and I built and told me it wasn't mine anymore. His eyes stayed glued to the table. Nicole convinced me it was for the best. She said the house was too much for you. That you'd be happier in a senior community. He swallowed hard. I thought we were helping you. Helping? My comm cracked. Throwing me out with nothing but the clothes on my back? That's not help, David. That's cruelty. I know, he whispered. Now I know. What did they have on you? I blurted out. Nicole and her parents. What hold did they have that you'd betray your own mother like this? David's head shot up in surprise. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Thompson, Marcus began. We should focus on. No, David interrupted firmly. She deserves the truth. He took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I made bad investments. I lost a lot, our savings, some of the retirement fund. I was desperate to cover it up before Nicole found out. That's when James offered help. He said he had safe opportunities. He lent you money? I guessed. David nodded, shame etched on his face. At first, yes. But then it got complicated. I signed papers. Got pulled into their businesses without realizing what they were. By the time I understood, I was already knee-deep in fraud. They had me trapped. They had leverage, Gloria observed quietly. They had me by the throat, David corrected bitterly. Nicole made sure I knew that if I refused, her father would dump all the blame on me. I tried to take it in, reconciling this broken man with the son I once trusted. And my house? My accounts? I demanded. He swallowed again. That was a test of loyalty, to prove I was committed. Nicole said once the rezoning went through, we'd make enough money to put you somewhere comfortable. I stared at him in disbelief. Did you actually believe that? I wanted to believe it, he said softly. It was easier than facing what I was really doing. For the first time in months, I glimpsed the boy I had raised. The boy who, after lying, would finally break down and confess. David, I asked carefully, what exactly are you asking from me today? He met my eyes at last. Nothing, Mom. I don't deserve your help. Or forgiveness. His voice cracked. I needed you to know I never meant to hurt you. I was weak. I was scared. I made terrible choices. Whatever happens, I'll take it. The simplicity of his words disarmed me. It wasn't the desperate spin I'd expected. It was raw. Broken. Real. Before I could respond, a knock sounded. The door opened. Agent Rip stepped in, apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but we have an urgent matter. Mrs. Thompson, could you come with me? I had finally faced my son, bracing for excuses. Instead, I heard a more complicated truth, that years earlier, he had fallen into James Sterling's grip, blackmailed and manipulated, until betrayal became his only way to survive. It didn't erase the pain, but for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the man he had once been. But just as that fragile understanding began to take shape, Rips arrived with news that would rip everything open again. She led me down the hall into a small conference room. Gloria followed, her steady composure shaken in a way that made my stomach clench. What happened? I asked as the door closed. Rips set a folder on the table. We've been executing new search warrants in Dallas. And a team found something you need to see. She slid out photos, grainy clinical images of a hospital room. My hospital room. Machines. Tubes. Me unconscious in a bed. I don't understand, I whispered. These were locked inside a safe in James Sterling's office, Rip said softly. She placed more papers in front of me, my medical records, doctor's notes, charts. Records that should have been sealed inside Phoenix General. How did they get these? Gloria demanded, voice tight. That's what we're trying to determine, Rips answered. The timestamps don't line up with visiting hours. And the documents contain restricted information. A shiver ran down my spine. Someone inside the hospital was helping them, she finished. I froze, staring at the files. My own recovery, my pain, had been in their hands. Rip's voice lowered. We've traced it to a nurse. Miranda Jenkins. She accessed your records repeatedly. Phone logs tie her directly to James Sterling. Gloria leaned closer to the documents. Linda, look here. My eyes followed her finger. A note on my chart. A dosage increase, written in handwriting that wasn't my doctor's. Rip said quietly, we believe your prolonged infection wasn't natural. Someone may have deliberately tampered with your care to keep you hospitalized longer. The implication hit me like a fist. You're saying they tried to? We're not accusing anyone yet, Rips cut in quickly. But the possibility is under investigation. I gripped the table edge to steady myself, dizziness washing over me. And there's more, Rips added reluctantly. She slid over one last paper. A life insurance policy in your name. Taken out 6 months ago. Beneficiary, David Thompson. The air drained from my lungs. David knew, I whispered. He had to know. Not necessarily, Rips warned. We've seen forged signatures throughout this case. We need to verify. I closed my eyes, fighting the despair. If David had signed this knowingly, everything he'd said in that room was a lie. I need to see him again, I said firmly. Mrs. Thompson, with this new information. I need to see his face when he hears it. That's how I'll know. When we returned, David sat with Marcus, speaking in low tones. Mr. Thompson has cooperated fully, Marcus began as Rip set the documents down. If you're implying, I'm asking for an explanation, Rips cut in. I can't explain it because I didn't do it. David burst out. Panic flickered in his eyes. Nicole handled all our insurance. She said we were updating policies. I signed whatever she put in front of me. His voice cracked with something rawer than fear of prison, true horror. David, I said quietly, do you understand what this means? Nicole and her parents may have been planning something far worse than fraud. His shoulders trembled. Oh God, what have I done? What have I allowed? For the first time I believed him. I need to amend my statement, he said suddenly, looking at Rips with resolve. I'll tell you everything I know about Nicole and her parents. Everything. 17 properties. That's what Callahan's map revealed. All stolen the same way. All run through Sterling shell companies. 2 weeks later, I was in a safe FBI apartment. Only Gloria and the agents knew where I was. The case had grown wider, darker than we'd imagined. And the nurse? I asked the question that haunted me. Miranda Jenkins, Rip said. She's confessed. Paid $25,000 to prolong your recovery. Adjusted meds. Introduced a mild infection. Cold. Clinical. Ruthless. She could have killed me. She claims she calibrated it to avoid risk of death. Rips added, disgust curling her voice. And Nicole? I asked. Veronica Sterling coordinated the details, Callahan confirmed. Texts show her asking about your schedule, your meds, your discharge date. The cruelty shook me to my core. And David? Gloria asked for me. No evidence he knew, Rips assured. His cooperation has been genuine. The prosecutors say he's crucial to the case. Relief and pain fought inside me. My son had betrayed me, but he hadn't conspired to kill me. Then came another folder. Emails. Nicole and her parents planning my downfall step by step, cutting me off, taking my finances, institutionalizing me. And then the final cruelty. A brochure for a memory care facility in Arizona. Nicole's note beside it. Perfect for Linda once everything is finalized. Minimal supervision. Easy control. I trembled, reading words colder than any blade. They plan to disappear me, I whispered. Rip's voice was firm. There will be additional charges. Elder abuse. Conspiracy. Possibly attempted homicide. When can I go home? I asked, voice shaking. The forensic team cleared your house yesterday, Callahan said. It's yours again. Safe. I want to go today, I answered. Gloria squeezed my hand. I'll stay with you. Rips nodded. We'll arrange security. But there's one more thing. David wants to see you again. Before he's transferred. I hesitated. My first instinct was no. But then I remembered the boy he once was. Tomorrow morning, I said finally. That afternoon I stood at my front door. Key trembling in my hand. Take your time, Gloria whispered. I unlocked the door. The scent of lavender I'd once filled the closets with was buried beneath cleaning chemicals and Nicole's perfumes. Small changes screamed the loudest. My husband's antique desk turned away from the garden window. My jewelry box emptied. My orchid gone. They erased us, I whispered. We'll put it back, Gloria promised. We'll make it yours again. It gave me little comfort to know that strangers had handled the most private parts of my life, judging the treasures of my marriage only for their dollar value, not for the love they carried. In the kitchen, the worst cut of all waited. My box of handwritten recipe cards, passed down from my mother and grandmother, gone. They'd been tossed aside like trash and replaced with glossy, untouched cookbooks that looked more like decorations than tools. That insult cut deeper than the theft. It felt like they were erasing my family's history. And yet, as I stood there surveying the wreckage, something unexpected came over me. A strange calm. This house, these things, they had been violated, but they were still mine. I was still standing. I had survived. I had fought, and I had taken back what they thought they could steal. The Sterlings never understood my resilience, my resources, or my sheer will. I'm staying, I told Gloria. The decision rising from someplace steady and unshakable inside me. Tonight in my house. She hesitated. Are you sure? Couldn't we just start fresh tomorrow? I'm sure, I said firmly. I won't let them keep me away one more night. That evening I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea, watching twilight settle over the garden Anthony and I had planted so many years ago. The roses were wild, the hydrangeas neglected. But the soul of what we had created was still alive. Tomorrow would bring hard conversations with Richard, more legal battles, the long rebuilding of my home and my life. But tonight I was here. Tonight I reclaimed my space. It was a beginning. As the investigation deepened, darker truths surfaced. Veronica and her parents had schemed beyond theft. Evidence revealed they had interfered with my medical recovery, aided by a corrupt nurse. Their goal was to have me declared unfit, locked away in a facility, erased from my own life. They had stalked me for nearly 2 years. Richard seemed unaware of this sinister layer, but the cruelty was so calculated it made me sick to my core. Looking around at the traces of my erased marriage, I realized the road ahead wasn't only about recovering my property. It was about rebuilding my sense of safety. Tomorrow, I would face my son again before his transfer to a federal facility. It was a conversation I dreaded, but one I couldn't avoid. The detention center's visitation room was brighter than I imagined, fluorescent light bouncing harshly off pale yellow walls. Richard sat at a small table, his uniform hanging loose on his thinner frame. He looked hollow, like the weight of sleepless nights had carved him out. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly as I sat across from him. "No lawyer this time. Just him." "It was your choice," I reminded him. "You wanted to see me, so here I am." He nodded, staring down at his clenched hands. "They told me about the nurse, about what Veronica and her parents planned." "Yes," I answered, and I waited. "I swear, Mom, I didn't know." His voice cracked. "I knew they wanted your house, your money. That was awful enough, but I never imagined." His words broke off. "I believe you," I said simply. His head snapped up in surprise. "You believe me? About that part?" "Yes. I've seen enough evidence to know you weren't aware of their plan to physically harm me. But you did know about the rest. You knew they meant to take everything I owned. And you chose to be part of it." He flinched but didn't deny it. "Yes. Why, Richard?" I finally asked, the question that had haunted me for weeks. "You had every advantage. Your father and I raised you with values. What happened to that boy? He was silent for a long time, then spoke slowly like each word scraped its way out. I ask myself the same thing every night. The easy answer is I was weak. I was afraid of losing Veronica if I didn't go along. I was afraid her father would expose my earlier mistakes. But the hard answer? He lifted his eyes to mine. The hard answer is that I convinced myself I deserved more than I had earned. That cheating was justified if it got me what I wanted. I became someone I don't even recognize. Someone Dad would be ashamed of. The mention of Anthony pierced me like glass. Your father would be disappointed, I said firmly. And so am I. Not only because you made mistakes but because you betrayed your own principles to hide them. He nodded, taking the blow without excuse. The prosecutors offered me a plea. 5 years, maybe 3 with good behavior, in exchange for testifying fully against Veronica and her parents. Will you take it? Yes. It's more mercy than I deserve. We sat in silence, the weight of consequence heavy between us. My son would spend years in prison. The life Anthony and I had dreamed for him had come to this sterile room. I found something in the house, I said softly, reaching into my purse. At the bottom of your father's desk drawer. I pulled out a worn envelope. A letter. He wrote it for you before he died. He asked me to give it to you when I thought you needed it most. That time is now. Richard's hands trembled as he held the envelope, seeing his name in Anthony's handwriting. I didn't know this existed, he whispered. I watched him read, watched pain, shame, and then something like determination flicker across his face. When he finished, he pressed the letter to his chest before carefully sliding it back. Thank you. I needed this. I needed him. What will you do after? I asked. When you've served your time? He looked startled, like he hadn't let himself imagine a future. I don't know. My career, my finances, my reputation, it's all gone. You'll have to rebuild, I told him. Not just your life. Yourself. That's the hardest work. I know. He hesitated, then asked the question that had hung between us since the day of his arrest. Will you ever forgive me? I took my time. Forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's a process. Right now, I'm still working through the pain and the betrayal. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you completely, but I know this, you're still my son. That doesn't change. What happens between us from here depends on the choices you make. He nodded, surprisingly calm. That's fair. Our time ended. As he stood to leave, he asked one last thing. Will you stay in the house? After everything? Yes, I answered firmly. It's my home. I won't let what they did drive me out of what your father and I built. Good, he whispered. Dad would have wanted that. I watched him walk away, shoulders straighter than before. It wasn't healing yet, but it was the beginning of understanding. Outside, Gloria waited in her car. How did it go? She asked gently. As well as it could, I said. He took the deal, 5 years, maybe 3. And how do you feel? I sat quietly for a moment. Sad. Relieved. Still angry. But less than before. Things are clearer now. As we drove home, the sunset poured golden light across my reclaimed house. It wasn't easy, and it wouldn't be, but for the first time in a long while I felt hope. Not because the path was simple, but because I had discovered a strength I didn't know I had. 6 months later, Gloria hung a family portrait back on the wall. My house was fully restored, my finances secured, and my community strengthened. The Stolen's were sentenced. Decades behind bars. The nurse who tampered with my health was imprisoned too. And my neighborhood, once marked for destruction, had united, creating safeguards for the elderly. Richard wrote me weekly from prison, letters filled with remorse but never demanding forgiveness. I decided I would see him again soon. That certainty came from a dream of Anthony. He told me, healing doesn't mean erasing the wound, it means finding purpose in the scar. And I had. The Anthony Miller Medical Research Foundation, once dedicated only to his illness, would now expand to protect seniors from the very crimes I had survived. My pain would become someone else's shield. Looking out at my garden in bloom, at neighbors waving, at Gloria beside me with her steady support, I understood that betrayal had broken me. But it also made space for growth, resilience, and a deeper understanding of what matters. In the end, justice came. The wicked were exposed, and those who held fast to their integrity, no matter how battered, found peace.